The temple of love is not love itself. True love is the treasure, not the walls about it. Do not admire the decoration, but involve yourself in the essence, the perfume that invades and touches you, the beginning and the end. Discovered, this replaces all else, the apparent and the unknowable. Time and space are slaves to this present. That was The Temple of Love by Rumi, and a beautiful, I suppose a way to touch into conversation that I was honored to share with Satish Kumar, founder of Schumacher College and editor for, I think, 14 years at Resurgence magazine. As a former Jain monk from the age of 9 years old to 18 years old. He practiced as a Jain monk and is an Indian-British activist and speaker, whom I had the pleasure of meeting 6 years ago at a private retreat of teachers and guides and other stewards committed to restoring a regenerative future. And I remember I was absolutely blown away with his humility, his zest for life, his gentleness, and at the same time, a really powerful conviction in his activism, which has inspired me ever since. And both having Indian heritage, it definitely felt like I was talking to my grandfather, which was beautiful. But in this episode, we explore what it means to become a pilgrim of life and infuse our activism, or at least our work in the world, with the sacred, what inner, social, and ecological peace look like when seen as parts of a greater whole, and what we might learn from Satish's 84 years of activism and peace pilgrimages, walking more than 10,000 miles in total across the world and sharing his teachings. So this was a real honor and is full of many poetic reminders to, as Satish would say, water the soil, soul, and our society. So enjoy, and I look forward to hearing any reflections on the other side. Grab a tea, take a breath, notice the inhale, the exhale, and the space between. A moment in between moments. Here you are. You're listening to Spaces Between with your friend and host, L. Jeffrey. An open exploration into restoring connection in the 21st century in our personal lives, our relations, and our communities. What does it mean to live in relationship to the wholeness of who we are together? I'm not one for ads and am one for creating something beautiful with others, in this case, you. So if you enjoy our time together, I do invite you to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, rate and leave a review for the show. And if you're feeling super generous and fueled and filled up by our conversations, you might even consider donating or soon joining my Patreon membership. Just visit www.spacesbetweenpodcast.com, where you'll also find show notes and other useful links and resources following these conversations. So this is it. Let's dive in. Brilliant. All right, Satish, thank you so much for taking time and joining me for a conversation.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we met very briefly 6 years ago at Uplift Festival here in Australia, Mullumbimby. So it's such an honor to be back in connection and to be able to have a much more focused one-on-one conversation. So I'm excited. As a way of...
This is a reconnecting.
Yeah, reconnecting. Here we are, living the mission. I'm curious, as a way of, I suppose, helping listeners connect with where you are, if you could just paint us a picture of where you're joining from.
Okay. I am speaking to you from Devonshire in England, and I am in a small village called Heartland. It's in North Devon, near the Atlantic Ocean, and it's a village of about 1,500 people. It's a very nice community. And I have lived here for the last 40 years. And I have a beautiful garden and an apple orchard. And at the moment, there are lots of apples growing because we are in the autumn in England. Mm-hmm. And so we have got beautiful crop of apples and lots of other vegetables and fruit and flowers in our garden. So it's a little bit of small paradise.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to be able to connect across the winds and the oceans through these technologies. And I suppose, speaking more broadly, where do you feel, just building context for the crazy, windy time that we're in, how is it that you, I suppose, make sense of this time that we're in, being, COVID and also many inequalities bubbling to the surface? How do you make sense of this time?
I feel that COVID is a crisis, but it is also an opportunity. Crisis is because the human nature relationship has not been very harmonious and not very constructive and not very positive. Humans have considered themselves as rulers of the planet Earth, and they have been encroaching the wild land and forests more and more for industrial development, for industrial agriculture, mass cash products, cash agriculture. And this way, we have been taking over the wild land of this planet Earth. And so this wild life had some virus as well. And so the human nature relationship needs to change. So this is a crisis caused by our own negative actions. We have been treating nature as a resource for the economy, for the profit, for making money, for industrialism. And in the name of progress and development, we have ruined nature. We have polluted the air. We have filled the oceans with plastic. We have taken more and more land, and we are growing food with chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides and other poisonous chemicals. And all that now is bouncing back in the name of, or in the form of, coronavirus, COVID-19, climate change, global warming, many, many other things like wildfire in California, wild forest fire in Australia last year. So all that is caused by human activity. And therefore, this is an opportunity to reevaluate our relationship with the natural world. And in that reevaluation, we have to say that we are not separate from nature. We are nature. And what we do to nature, we do to ourselves. And nature is not a resource for the economy and profit and money, but nature is a source of life, and we have to respect nature. So this is the response we need to give so that we can have a better life for ourselves and better life for all the species of planet Earth.
Yeah. And I suppose that leads into a question I wanted to ask to frame our conversation is how you, I suppose, describe sacred activism. You're someone who I've admired from afar for your really humble and playful, I suppose, activism, which is really rooted in the knowing that we are nature, nature is us, and also we are the system, and the system is us. And so I'm wondering how you might describe it.
Yeah. For me, sacred activism is activism with humility, and every act that we perform is an act of love in sacred activism. And therefore, we are not telling the world that I'm right and you are wrong. Even though I have said that human nature relationship has not been very harmonious, but that's a recognition of reality. But my action is in humility and with love. So I have a great and deep and profound love for the humanity, for the planet Earth, and for our future generations. And so all my actions are actions of love. So that's a one kind of quality or one attribute of sacred activism. It's coming out of love. Secondly, I am acting because action itself is its own reward. I'm not expecting any results immediately because actions are not in my hands. I can only act. And so action is in my hand, but the results are not in my hands. The outcome is not in my hands. And the achievement is not in my hands. In my hands, what I have is action. And therefore, I do action for its own intrinsic value. Action is in itself good action because I am in the service of the humanity. I'm in the service of the planet Earth, and I do my best as much as I can, but I don't tell other people that you are wrong, I'm right, you must listen to me, you must change according to my idea. And so I remove the arrogance, and I remove a kind of superiority complex, and I act humbly and lovingly and caring for the earth. Like if you have a sick person, somebody suffering from old age, or somebody is some difficult time, then as a servant, I recognize that there is an illness, there is a sickness, there is a cancer, there is old age, there are other problems and suffering, but I do action of service with love. Even if cancer doesn't go away, even if other illness doesn't go away, even if the old age doesn't go away, still I act out of love. That is to me sacred activism.
Yeah, and what comes to me is the kind of the depersonalization of the action. It's not we're not taking, I suppose, or being of service so that we can feel a certain way about ourselves, or so that we feel like, we are being of service. We are in service because there's a real humility and genuinity and authenticity around it. And also it fuels us. That's the regenerative service loop, is it has to be somewhat love-filled for us.
Yeah. So the sacred activism is also for your own evolution, for your own purification, for your own development, so that your wisdom, your generosity, your compassion, your kindness, your love grows within you. And so your sacred activism is not only for others, it is also for yourself, your own personal development. So it's a mutual. When I'm in the service of others, I help others, and others are helped by me. But at the same time, through that service, I am helped, and I am improving my own generosity and compassion and spirituality. So this way, if you take the examples of sacred activists such as Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, so these are two great examples, and they devoted their lives in the service of humanity and the service of the planet Earth. And whatever they did, this was also a process of self-purification and a self-development. And so sacred activism is not only for the others, it's also for the activists themselves to grow and glow and improve.
Yeah, I just want to keep saying yes to everything. Yeah, it's censored as a real, I suppose, recognizing the reciprocity between and the inherent relatedness between ourselves and the world or others. And I suppose just the nature of being in the world is such that we are constantly giving and receiving in a kind of dance. And so our service has to be a kind of, has to come from within and out. So through purifying, as you say, our kind of instrument, which is our bodies.
So sacred activism is a recognition of the unity of life. We are all belong to each other. We are all related. We are all connected. We are all interdependent. We all come from the same source, same origin. At the time of Big Bang, there was no Satish Kumar, and there was no Al Jeffrey, and there was no forest, and there were no animals, and there were no birds. There was just Big Bang, a universal consciousness. And out of that universal consciousness, over the billions of years, evolution has created this diversity out of that unity. And so now we have billions and trillions of life forms, but they all come from one life source, one universal consciousness. And therefore, we should see that I am a microcosm of macrocosm. I am made of earth, air, fire, water, sun, moon, rain, everything out there is in here, in me. So I feel one with the whole of humanity. And I celebrate the diversity, but through that diversity, we see the unity. I see the unity. So unity and diversity dance together. And therefore, I don't see any division. I don't see any disconnection. I don't see that you are Australian, I'm Indian, or you are American, and you are Chinese, and you are Japanese, and you are African, and you are black, and you are white, or you are religious differences like Hindus, or you are Muslims, you are Christians. These are not divisions. These are diversities. And we should celebrate diversity rather than see it as a division, because division leads to conflict. Division leads to superiority and inferiority. Division says, my religion is better than your religion. My race is better than your race. My country is better than your country. Make great America great again. My country is better than your country. That kind of division and conflict is a result of this kind of thinking that we are separate. We are not separate. There is no separation. There's a unity of life, and unity of life manifesting in many, many forms. So whole earth is a living organism, one body. Earth is a living organism. Like in our one body, we have hands, we have legs, we have ears, we have eyes, we have different parts of the body, but they all belong to one body. Although hands can build a house, legs can walk the distances, and from eyes we can see, and from ears we can hear. We have different functions, but that is not a conflict. They are part of one body. In the same way, whether you are American or Chinese or Australian or Indian or black or white or Hindu or Muslim or Christian or whatever it is, woman, man, whatever we are members of the earth community and the world community and the planet community. Our home is planet home. The whole earth is one home. So if we have that generosity of spirit, that big mind and big heart, then we can celebrate unity and diversity together. And that is the sacred activism that I embrace.
Yeah, and I suppose within the question of restoring this sense of wholeness, I mean, for me, is I suppose, living and being in the world from that place, the recognition of the whole, of the system, and obviously recognition of the parts as well, but situating the parts within the whole. To restore that takes one to go on their own inner journey, which is also part of their sacred activism, to cultivate that big mind, that wide heart. And I was curious about your journey to, I suppose, move from the kind of anthropocentric view or kind of an egocentric to ecocentric view. Curious to hear some around your journey as a Jain monk from 9 years old to 18 years old, and how you feel that may have influenced your way of perceiving the whole and the community of life on planet Earth as you speak to.
Yes. You know, the Jain religion is one of the great religion of India. There are 4 great religions in India: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. These are the 4 great religions. And so Jainism and Jain tradition is very much based or founded on the principle of non-violence. And non-violence is an essential part of sacred activism. Mahatma Gandhi embraced non-violence. Martin Luther King embraced non-violence. And non-violence and sacred activism go together. So Jains will say that you have to be non-violent to yourself, first and foremost, because non-violence begins with yourself. You have to be at peace within your heart. You have to have peace of mind. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to love yourself and forgive yourself if you have made any mistake in the past. So this is a kind of start, non-violence of the mind, non-violence of the thought, non-violence of emotions, non-violence of spirit, inner non-violence. Jain non-violence is not limited to only a physical non-violence, that you don't hit somebody or you don't kill somebody or you don't eat meat and be vegetarian. That kind of non-violence is the beginning, the first step. But the Jain non-violence goes very deep, and this becomes the foundation of sacred activism. And then, as a Jain monk, for 9 years, I was walking bare feet, no bicycle, no car, no train, no boat, no plane, nothing other than just your 2 legs. So sacred activism makes you a pilgrim. And wherever you go, you are going on foot. Another great influence in my life later, after I left Jain monkhood, was Vinoba Bhave. And he was a sacred activist. And he was asking landlords to give land for the poor and distribute the land. And he walked for 12 years all across India, more than 100,000 miles. And that was a sacred journey, a pilgrimage to transform Indian economics and Indian relationship between landlords and the poor, landless, untouchables, and land workers. And so that was walking on the land and walking bare feet and touching the land and going from village to village, town to town, home to home, people to people, and communicating without any arrogance, without any ego, but more with eco, with more humble feelings. So as a Jain monk for 9 years, I walked and walked and walked from village to village with this pilgrimage and the sacred activism to promote the ideas of non-violence and ideas of peacefulness and making peace within your heart and making peace with all people of whatever background they are, and making peace with nature, making peace with animals, making peace with forests and mountains and oceans. So, and peace with cosmos, peace in cosmos. So this kind of very broad range of thinking was kind of seeded. The seeds of this thinking was seeded from 9 to 18 years of my life, early age. And ever since, I am following the principle of nonviolence at every level, subtle level nonviolence. Because when people talk about nonviolence, they generally think of physical nonviolence. But it's an economic nonviolence, it's a political nonviolence, a spiritual nonviolence. And that was the training of the Jain tradition.
Mm. Mm. Wow. And 9 years old, I'm curious if there was a spark, or what pulled you to become a Jain monk at 9 years old?
The simple one good reason was that when I was 4 years old,
wow,
my father and all my family was in mourning and crying and sad and upset because we were quite young. My father was only about 50. And so when I saw this very sad moment in my family, I thought, what is death? Why do people die? Is there any way to stop people dying so that nobody will be sad and nobody will need to cry? So that way, I started to question. And I was told by people, particularly Jain monks, that in order to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death, you have to renounce the world and take the monk's life. So that became the inspiration. And I felt at that time, by age 9, that I can do and I will do anything to stop people dying. So no birth, no death, free of birth and death. So that was a kind of inspiration. And then I liked the monk's life. It was a very good life. It's a very peaceful life. And you are detached. You don't have a home. You are always walking. And you are going from village to village. And you are living by begging food. And people give you hospitality and give you food and shelter. And so I lived a very light and very kind of spiritual life. And then I studying Sanskrit and the sacred text and Jain, Buddhist, all these sacred texts. And so it was a very good training for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. What a training. And I suppose the question that comes up for me is, I mean, in our modern world, and it's not many of us, at least in the Western world, that at 9 years old have either the opportunity or even in our culture and society, the awareness that it could be possible for a 9-year-old to go and live in an immersive community of practice like you did. And so many of us come to these, I suppose, ideas and new awareness later in life when maybe we're already living a very busy Western life. And sometimes there is the question of, is it, as part of our sacred activism, must we go and live, renounce our daily lives and live as a monk or live in retreat for a period of time and then come back to this world and offer what we've found? Or is there a way to be in this world without maybe living on retreat for a certain amount of time or living as a monk for a certain amount of time? Is there a way to integrate this way of being into our daily lives? Or do you feel it is necessary for us to renounce and to have a period of time where we are purely in practice?
And there's no one way.
Hmm.
There are multiple ways, and each and every one of us have to find our own way. There is no one dogmatic formula which will suit everybody. But in general, I would say that like the Buddhist monks have this idea, or Buddhist society has this idea in Nepal, Burma, or Myanmar, Thailand, these countries, once in your life, at least for 6 weeks or 2 months or a short period, you need to leave your home, leave your business, leave your politics, leave your agriculture, leave whatever you are doing, and take a retreat in a monastic order. And that's a very interesting and very good tradition. And in other countries, like in Christian countries, people have time for Lent. They take 40 days when they are in retreat, and they fast and they practice spiritual values and they practice forgiveness and they live very simple life. So Lent is a very good kind of time for retreat. In Muslim cultures, they have Ramadan, and that is also a very interesting time when you are doing charity and you are looking after people. You are giving your time in a spiritual way and taking as a retreat from day-to-day life. So that was the kind of tradition in Islam. So many traditions have developed these ideas. But each and every one of us have to find a way of being in touch with ourselves, being in touch with our deep spirit, and being in touch with our inner world, rather than just always engaged in outer world of business and the politics and the money and production and consumption and all these kind of things that we are always engaged 24 hours, 7 days a week, 12 months a year. So it is important that sometimes we take that break. And so, but I would say that even not just once a year, like Ramadan or Lent or becoming a Buddhist monk, but I would say that every day we need to take some time for ourselves, prepare our inner world because outer transformation and outer change is not complete without the inner change and the inner transformation. And therefore, every day we need to take some time off when we can go in nature and sit under a tree or sit by a river or by the sea or even in your quiet room, close your eyes, and within your heart, within your soul, you look and see where I am, what is the meaning of my life, what is the purpose of my life, what am I doing, am I fulfilled, what are my values, and you meditate and contemplate on your inner qualities of life and inner world and inner transformation, rather than just all the time, 24 hours, 7 days a week, engaged and working for money, paying the bills and earning your livelihood and all that. So this kind of retreat idea is very good, but each and every one of us have to find our own way. There's no fixed formula about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I suppose it's a real, in finding our own way, finding a way that helps us really integrate what it is that we learn and discover in ourselves and the world on retreat, to really integrate that back into our daily lives, to, I suppose, David White says, to carry the cargo of our revelation into our waking day. And so to kind of carry the cargo maybe of what it is that we did discover in retreat back into our daily lives, so we can really bring that into our relationships with others in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. Because we are focusing on our physical realities, but human body contains consciousness, imagination, spirituality, compassion, love. These are metaphysical and non-physical dimensions of human life. If we only look after physical dimension and material dimension and ignore the spiritual and metaphysical dimension, then we will suffer. We will suffer emotionally, we will suffer mentally, we will suffer spiritually. And therefore, it is important to bring that balance between the physical world and the non-physical world, the physical world and the metaphysical world, the material world and the spiritual world. When we can bring these two together and live in harmony with each other, look after your body, of course, but look after your spirit as well. Look after your work, but also look after your meditation as well. So like for body, you need medicine. For spirit and soul, you need meditation. So meditation and medicine are from the same root, the same etymological root. And therefore, medicine for the body and meditation for the mind and for the soul.
I like that. Medicine and meditation. Do you know what the root of the word med or meditation and medicine, what the etymology is?
It's a medure.
Medure.
It's a Latin term, and which means to pay attention.
Right.
And so when you pay attention to your body, you take some medicine or food, and the food becomes medicine, because if you take turmeric or cumin or coriander or any all these foods have medical and medicinal value. And so even grain, protein or vitamins or whatever you have, you take food as a medicine for the well-being and good health of your body. So you try to avoid junk food, too much sugar, too much kind of salt, too much junk food, processed food, old food, tamasic food. And so take food as a medicine for the body. And then in the same way, for the mind, you avoid junk information, junk books, just entertainment, superficial, too much Facebook, too much Twitter, too much all this kind of superficiality. And we go into deeper understanding of our spirit, our consciousness, and our love. And so those are the kind of deeper, like you avoid junk food for the body, you also avoid junk information and junk knowledge for the mind and for the soul.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. I'm curious what some of the things are that you do. I mean, I read an article the other day in The Guardian that you wrote, I think, that spoke about that in India, you use say the word peace 3 times, shanti, 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 to speak to inner peace and then social peace and then also ecological peace. Some of the practices that you use personally and still to this day to tend to your inner peace. I suppose I'd love to explore all 3, inner peace, ecological peace, and social peace. But for you personally, some of the practices that you use during this climate that we're in that to really tend to your inner peace. Yeah, what are some of the practices that you tend to?
Some of the practices, the 2 particular practices I can say, which brings me to my inner peace. Number 1 is reading poetry, spiritual poetry, reading Rumi, Hafiz, William Blake, Bhagavad Gita, Tao Te Ching, all these kind of very classic but very beautiful, inspiring, consoling, heartwarming poetry. So I read every morning from 7 to 8 is 1 hour I spend, and mostly with my wife I read aloud. We read to each other, and we talk about the spiritual poetry and spiritual meaning of life and how we can be inspired. So that's a kind of meditation, and that's a kind of morning preparation for the day and preparation for life, you can say. So we are tending the soil of our soul. We are watering the seeds of love and compassion in our spirit. So that like in the garden, you have to water the seeds so that seeds can grow into plants and become fruit and flower and vegetable. In the same way, in our heart, we have seeds of love and compassion and kindness and generosity, and we have to water them. And poetry is a very good watering for the seeds in your soul. And so that's my meditation and daily practice. And I have read many, many wonderful, great poets and great spiritual writers, Zen books, and Tao Te Ching, and many other spiritual books. From any tradition, I don't mind. It could be from Christian tradition, Buddhist tradition, or kind of American Indian, Aboriginal from Australia, or North Indian indigenous people. So there are many traditions. I am a kind of not a dogmatic about any one religion, even though I was brought up as a Jain in my childhood. But now I'm embracing the spirituality from whichever source it comes. It is not just one single source. So the second practice I have every day is at least 1 hour going out in nature, lie under the trees, lie on the grass, sit by the river, sit by the ocean, and see the external vastness of the universe and the internal vastness of my soul are interconnected. So in order to bring a sort of peace to my heart, and peace in my mind, and peace in my soul, peace within me, I also experience the peace without of nature. So nature is a very great healer. Nature is my teacher. Nature is almost my temple. When you go to a temple or church for worship, I go to a mountain or to a river or to a forest and worship there. So that is my spiritual practice. So one, going inner meditation through poetry and through chanting of mantras. So I chant many beautiful mantras, not only Om, Shanti, 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 but also many other Sanskrit mantras, Gayatri mantra, Mahamrityunjay mantra, many other mantras. So by chanting and reading poetry, I console and heal and fulfill and feed my spirit and my soul. And then also by being in nature, I feed my spirit and soul. And that way I also cultivate love for nature. And then I can have unity with nature. And then I can look after nature. And I have a deep commitment to look after nature. So my activism is also fed by being in nature and by being spiritual.
Yeah, it feels like it tethers you back to, I suppose, to the source of our activism, which is to be in connection with the spiritual self and the system, the whole itself. And so our practices being our temples and, our ways of water, tending to the soil. I love that you said to bring us back to, I suppose, the purpose of our will and our work in the first place, to really be in service to the whole. And I suppose in our time where it feels like resiliency, and there's a lot of talk about the need to build resiliency, and these practices really help us do that.
Yeah. The thing is that we are gifted with tremendous power, inner power, soul power. And that power and those qualities of soul are kind of dormant, and they need cultivating. And that cultivating is to be who we are. Each and every human being on this planet is unique. Every human being is very special. Every human being is a potential artist, a potential poet, a potential activist. And therefore, be cultivating our own inner qualities is an everyday journey. It's an everyday sacred journey. It's a pilgrimage of life. It's a journey of life. So rather than spending all this time on having things, we spend so much time in having a house, having a job, having a car, having a computer, having gadgets, having things and stuff. We need to make this journey of sacred journey for being rather than having. We are human beings, not human havings, but we have become human havings. Our industrial system and our economic growth system and our so-called progress and development has turned us from human being to human having. And we are no longer poets and artists. We are just laborers, and we are just clerks and office workers. And we are just instruments of making profit for a company or for a business or for an industry or for government or something. So human beings have become a kind of means to an end. And the end is material progress and a materialism and a kind of consumerism and more production and more consumption. This is kind of has become the goal. So what I'm saying, the sacred activism is to transform that from having to being a good person, being an artist, being a friend, being just a human being, who we are. And each and every one of us are special and unique and wonderful. And so releasing that potential is the work of sacred activism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wrote down to become instruments of the sacred as a kind of maybe a frame for sacred activism is to recognize that all is sacred. We are sacred. And our work is to re-arrive in the sacredness of it all.
Yes.
And to become instruments of the sacred, therefore to become
and everything we do becomes sacred if we do it with love and a sense of service and a sense of offering and a sense of gift. So whatever, like I'm talking to you now, it is a gift to you, and you are talking to me, you are a gift to me. So there's a kind of mutuality and reciprocity. So do what you love and love what you do, and that love will transform your ordinary action into sacred activism and extraordinary action.
Yeah, I suppose it just, again, it's often said to make something sacred, or to make something a ritual that is sacred is simply a quality of attention. It doesn't need to be anything special other than a quality of attention. We gift something can turn something from being experienced as mundane to being experienced as something deeply moving and sacred. And so I suppose for many people listening in as well, it feels like in the kind of urgency of our culture and the rate at which we move and the kind of timeliness and everything's a rush, that to cultivate this sacredness, this quality of attention is possibly one of our greatest opportunities for really giving ourselves the permission to slow down. Yeah, I'm wondering what you would share about that. And I imagine living 9 years as a monk must have taught you so much about the pace of movement. And
slow is beautiful. Slow is beautiful. And grow like tree grows. Tree grows slowly. You hardly notice the tree has grown. In the same way, we have to learn from nature. And we have to, in nature, everything is slow and everything changes slowly. And so when the spring comes, it comes very slowly and then goes away very slowly. And then other seasons, same. So grow like tree grows. That's my kind of motto. And when you are doing so, it's not a speed. It's the appropriateness of your speed. It's a journey. Life is a journey. And when you are walking, that's a true journey. And you don't walk fast. You walk to your pace. You have a space. And so doing things to the appropriate pace and appropriate speed, which is, I would say, slowness. So slow down, you go much further. I walked from India to Moscow and to Paris and to Washington and to Tokyo and Hiroshima. I walked 8,000 miles. And that took me 2.5 years. When we fly around the world in kind of 24 hours, we see nothing. We meet nobody properly. And we don't experience nature. And we don't experience the forests and the oceans and the mountains. But when you are walking, you experience every step. And every step is a step of miracle. Every step is a step of peace. So every step is something of a new experience. So you have to observe every place where you are walking or standing. That you cannot do in a hurry. You cannot experience in a hurry. You cannot write a poem in a hurry. You cannot paint a beautiful picture in a hurry. You cannot make a beautiful dance in a hurry. If you cannot make all those beautiful things in a hurry, why are you hurrying for anything? Turn everything into a work of art. Turn everything into a work of poetry. And when you turn that, then time is not relevant in that moment. what you are doing, your attention, your awareness, your engagement, your commitment to that particular action to its deepest level. That is the most important point. Not how quickly you do, how well you do. And in doing something well, you don't think about time. You do what needs doing, and you do it properly, and you do it well. So we are not interested in the quantities of production, because speed, it leads to quantitative idea. We are interested in the quality of life. The quality cannot be obtained in a hurry or in a speed. It takes its time. So give yourself time to evolve and time to grow, and let things grow slowly.
Yeah, it's a real reminder for any of us, and for me, just during lockdown, I suppose it's been a real mirror to how strong the tendency is to fill the calendar and to move quickly and to pack so much in. And for me, and I imagine for many others as well, it's kind of stemmed from the sense of not enoughness, like that somehow our worth is related to how much we do and how many blocks in our calendar are full. And so there's this kind of, and I feel it for the emerging generations, there's this real pull to be of service, but there's also this kind of echoing narrative from our culture that says that you are your work and your worth is based on how much you do. And so we're trying to be in service to, a more harmonious planetary existence. And at the same time, we're still entrenched in this culture of do. So I wonder, is there...
From do to be.
Yeah, which is a very tricky shift for many people. And I suppose for me, what's coming up is the notion of community, the importance of surrounding ourselves with community who are also orienting towards being rather than doing, so that we feel held and supported. And so I suppose I'm curious, what role has community played for you in helping you, in a way, repattern your way of being from doing and having?
I am part of Schumacher College community. And that is a real community. And I spent a lot of time at Schumacher College. I founded Schumacher College in Devon. And there, maybe we are about 30 people at any one time. Students come to stay there for 1 year, studying. And then some students come as volunteers, and they can stay there for 6 months or 1 year or 3 months. And so we cook together, food and cooking together. We take a rota and 3-4 people every day. We cook together, and food and cooking and sharing food together makes the Schumacher College a real community. And then we have a garden together. And so we grow our food. And when we have our own apples and potatoes and beans and peas and the sweet corns and cucumbers and tomatoes, and we harvest them and we bring from the garden and we cook in our kitchen, and then we do washing up together. And then if there are any repairs to be done, there are cleaning to be done, we do it together. So our study there is not just intellectual. The community of Schumacher College makes learning of head, but also learning from heart and learning with your hands. And so head, heart, and hands, that becomes the trinity of a community. So for me, Schumacher College is the real community of students. And before that, in India, I lived in a community of Gandhians, and that was an ashram community. And an ashram is the same thing, same principle. We have learned the principle of ashram and turned Schumacher College like a Western ashram. So in the ashram as well, like in Schumacher College, we begin our day with meditation. Then we have a community meeting so that people can bring everything. They read together, some maybe poem or a little song, or what is the news in the college, and who is coming and who is going, and what is the day today, and who is doing cooking, who is doing washing up, who is doing gardening. All these things we talk in the morning meeting. And then we have a study time, and then we have a eating time, and then we have walking time. We go out in nature together, and a teacher will take us to a deep time walk, on Dartmoor. And then we come in the evening and we have dinner together. And then we have again sort of evening when we can sing together, we can dance together, we can have a discussion together. So that's the kind of community of students in Indian ashrams or at Schumacher College we have. And while we have community living, it's more than community living just for living. Living is important, but also study. So we are studying holistic way, Gaia, deep ecology, holistic science, ecological agriculture, ecological agroecology, permaculture. All these things are also studying, practicing and studying together. Because without practice, study is useless. And study and practicing without studying, you can't do enough because you don't know what you are doing. So studying permaculture, studying agroecology, studying organic farming, then practicing it. So knowledge and practice go together. And that's a community life that we have created at Schumacher College. And many people from Australia coming to Schumacher College, from all over the world, people have come. But of course, at this moment, because of the COVID-19, traveling is restricted. So most of the members of Schumacher College at the moment are British. But sometimes we have from international and many Europeans come. And so that's a kind of community living in practice.
Yeah, and Schumacher College has been a college that I have been watching from afar for quite some time myself, very curious about the future of community and living and working and learning. And yeah, I've really admired your work and the integrity in it from afar. And I look forward to coming over when I can also. But also, I'll put definitely the website in the show notes, and a big encouragement for everyone listening to just connect online, and when we can travel to head on over.
Yes, you will be very welcome. Anyone listening will be very welcome to look at our website. And when the travel restrictions are relaxed, please come and spend some time at Schumacher College.
Yeah. Dancing, cooking, gardening, learning. How else would we like to be? Yeah. So I suppose as a way to start to close, for those listening and for those on their, I suppose, journey and their pilgrimage of sacred activism, to really have our being in the world be our gift, you could say, to this time. Are there any, I suppose, parting invitations or words of advice from someone who has been on such a journey for so many years to be the gift that you are to the world? Any?
I mean, you use the word pilgrim, and that's a very good word and very good thought and very good principle. We should treat ourselves as pilgrims of life and pilgrims on this planet Earth. And pilgrims go without expectations. They accept life as it comes. They honor people, they honor nature, they honor difficulties, they honor ups and downs. When you are walking on a Camino de Santiago or any other pilgrimage to Mount Kailash or any other pilgrimage to Mother Ganga or any other pilgrimage that you can think of in anywhere in the world, you are walking and you are experiencing ups and downs of life as you are experiencing ups and downs of landscape. And so life is full of problems. It is not that we should not have problems or there should be no problems. The question is how you handle the problem, how you address the problem, how you do resolve the problem. That is the wisdom a pilgrim can have and does have. And therefore, be a pilgrim of life and live without too many expectations, but more acceptance of life. And after acceptance, participate like a pilgrim keeps walking, never gets stuck, never gets kind of attachment to a place. I say always remain detached, engaged, but detached, and without possessiveness and without ownership. Just everything is a gift for a pilgrim. And so drop your expectations, live with acceptance, and then participate in the process of life. And through that participation, you transform yourself, you transform other people. And be the change that you want to see in the world. Be the radiators who radiates heat of love and heat of compassion. So if we can become radiators and become the change that we want to see in the world, we can become sacred activists.
Wow, we could say all of that all over again. I love the less expectations, more acceptance, and yeah, everything a gift. So may we all become pilgrims of life and really live as radiators. Thank you so much, Satish, for your sharing, and yeah, for the gifts that you offer. We'll make sure we put Schumacher College's website in the show notes. Is there anywhere else that you would invite people to connect with you?
Yes, I write in every issue of Resurgence magazine,
Mm-hmm.
Resurgence and Ecologist magazine. I was the editor of Resurgence and Ecologist for 43 years. And so in every issue, I'm writing articles. And if you become a member of Resurgence Trust, which is only about £30, I don't know what would be Australian money, a year, then you have access to the archives of 54 years of Resurgence and Ecologist. And so there's a very good source of information, knowledge, wisdom, people like James Lovelock and Vandana Shiva and Fritjof Capra and Charles Eisenstein and Bangari Mathai and many, many other wonderful people who have written for Resurgence. You can have access to that. So if you can put a Resurgence website on your podcast, on your program, that'd be wonderful.
Lovely. All right. Thank you again, Satish.
You are welcome.
What questions are still whirring inside for you? What landed and rung loudly for you? Let's take a moment. Thank you for joining me for another life-affirming and enriching conversation, each one a light, a torch to guide us on our path to being in right relationship with ourselves, those we walk with, and the ecologies we are very much a part of. I trust this has gifted you something to place in your toolkit to support you in your journey and your leadership. Make sure to connect with me and leave any comments on my Facebook or Instagram page at @ljeffrey, and check out the links in the show notes. This show is completely funded by listeners just like you, so if you feel generous and wish to be part of nourishing these inquiries that we're exploring together, you can leave a once-off donation or soon subscribe to my Patreon membership. Show notes, resources, and donations are all at www.spacesbetweenpodcast.com. Until next time, remember, we can't rush our way back. Notice connections and tend to the sweet, sweet spaces between. Lots of love.